Good evening. This is Thursday, December 3rd, 2020, Board of Education Policy Committee meeting. Governor Pritzker recently extended the disaster declaration related to the COVID-19 pandemic for all Illinois counties. Based on the current public health concerns, the board president of Elmhurst Community Unit District number 205, as head of the public body, has determined that it is neither practical nor prudent to hold an in-person public meeting on December 3rd, 2020. The board president has further determined that it is not feasible for the public to be present at the public body's regular meeting location due to the health concerns related to COVID-19. This policy committee meeting will be remote and comply with the procedures set forth in Public Act 101-640. Furthermore, due to the pandemic, this meeting will be virtual. Public viewing and participation is by electronic means by clicking on the video button that's found on board docs, as well as that is the location to submit public comments. So with that being said, I will call this meeting to order and I will do a roll call. Courtney Troutman. Let's see, next person I see, Kathy Schmidt.
Yes.
Beth Hostler. You're on mute, babe.
Yes, sorry.
Luke Pavone.
Yes.
Margaret Harrell.
Present.
And RJ. Oh, RJ left, right? Okay. Okay. With that being said, we will start the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, next section. For up to an hour, submissions received before 6 p.m. on the day of the meeting will be read aloud or summarized after stating the name of the author. Comments received before 6 p.m. which were not read aloud or summarized will be reviewed by board members. All submissions received will be made available publicly on the district's website. So I am looking at the public comment document right now, and there are no public comments. So the next item on the agenda is the approval of the June 4th, 2020 minutes. I believe they were included in the agenda and everyone has had a chance to review them. Are there any changes to the June 2020 policy committee meeting minutes? Okay, with none being heard, they will stand as recorded. All right, section 5, next section of the agenda is the policy discussion topics. We will be reviewing press updates from the June, August, and November 2020 press issues. So with that being said, Kathy has created a very convenient chart for us to utilize to keep us organized. And so we're going to use that chart to work through the policy updates that we're going to discuss tonight. So the first one is policy 220, which is titled School Board Meeting Procedures. There is policy, legal, and cross-reference updates from press in this policy. And it's press issue 104. So I will open this one up to discussion on the changes that are indicated. To me, it looks like there are two changes. One is that the addition of the acronym OMA for Open Meetings Act. And the I think more significant one is that they've added in kind of that discussion about us not being able to meet in person. Basically what we're doing right now and participating because of in that way when a disaster declaration is declared by the governor. So does anybody have any points to discuss regarding this one?
I have none.
Was that Bart? Not Beth. That was Margaret, right? Okay.
Yes.
And Beth?
No, nothing for me.
Okay. So so then the press recommendations for change to 220 will stand and go with, we will update with those recommendations. Okay, so the next one is 230, public participation at school board meetings. So this is a review of our current policy. Our policy was vastly different from the press recommended policy. And so as we've talked numerous times, at least in the last several policy committee meetings and at a couple board meetings, you know, we're going to start piecemealing our policy, our entire policy book to look at, make sure everything is up to date and everything is consistent with what the press updates are and what actually is going on in the school districts. So this is one of those where we stand not the same as the press one. Clearly, that's going to be a good question. So I think included in the packet is what the press recommendation is, the press issue, the press policy is. Do you guys want to discuss it? Or I think that I also pulled out several of the policies from surrounding districts, Hinsdale, Wheaton, Indian Prairie, and they are all very consistent with what press looks like. Some of them verbatim and others, some of them are actually verbatim. So does anybody want to discuss or?
I have one question. I'm wondering, given our current circumstances where we have this participation virtual, if there's any thought on including that into our policy in the event an emergency happens again.
So including comment part about how we read the comments, or
yes, something to that effect, you know, because here it's talking about, yes, something to that effect. I didn't see anything that talked about you know, in the event of a pandemic that where people are not there publicly, that we will have this. So I am posing that as a question.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's a great point, because clearly that's been our reality for, 6 months now, where we have not been able to have public participation in our meetings. Hopefully it will never be there again. But yeah, so do you think, Margaret, it would be added on to like the kind of the bullet points of, well, that would be more like, it would be a separate paragraph, right?
Would you like me to run it by legal and see what language that has been used with other districts?
I think that would be great, Kathy.
Okay, let me do that.
Yeah, I think so, because there is nothing, like I said, I looked at pretty much everyone's, the surrounding districts policy, current policy, and nobody has anything like that in there.
Okay.
And Courtney, also along with that, and Kathy, I don't see anything in here, and this goes along with our current situation about having them posted then if they are virtual. Maybe that's another piece we add in with that little added.
Yeah, and maybe it's just even the language that we use on our agenda, right? Like that,
Yeah.
I mean, the submissions which are not read aloud will be, publicly listed on the district website, right? Like that kind of just, even if we don't get to read it, it's still listed. Yeah, so I'm even like Hinsdale's, I'm just looking at their policies. Theirs was just adopted and updated in July, and they did not add anything into it, which I'm sure they're still, doing the same thing we are.
I
But
do know that there are some districts that have public actually send in emails of their comments. RJ, I was talking to him before the meeting, and he was saying that he found out from other districts that some of them are just having emails come in, and then those emails that are read by the board members. So I think there's a lot of differences out there of what people are doing.
Yeah, and maybe, I think the way RJ has it set up, where public comments can come into one location for everybody, is the simplest and the most easily accessible for the board. But I think it's a good idea. Maybe we don't kind of confine ourselves to any one method. We just say, if this scenario should arise again, yeah, so I think, you know what I mean, Kathy. So maybe have legal see how they want to add that in there.
Yep, will do.
Okay, so we will get legal feedback, and then Kathy, can we keep this on for the next policy meeting? So we'll
Absolutely.
have that back in.
Thank you, Kathy.
Okay. So then we'll move on to 340, which is general school administration. Superintendent, its policy is unchanged. There's just a legal reference update. It's press issue 106. So does anybody have anything to discuss there?
Just as a reference, since the last time we reviewed this policy was 2015. And you can tell me as a committee if this is something you want me to continue, because you'll see the next one will say 5-year policy review. So if there's something just simple like this one, it was a legal reference that changed, but we haven't looked at it since 2015. It gives the board a chance to review the policy, which I think is good. But you tell me if you want me to continue doing that.
No, Kathy, I truly appreciate it. I know that several years ago, and Margaret obviously knows the history better than this, but I've heard Ellen tell me the story about when she finally undertook the updating of the policy manual for the district and what an undertaking it was. And so I think it's really important for us to stay up on all of these. And by doing these reviews, if there's a couple of years that have gone by and we haven't looked at it, yeah, I think let's trigger that into an automatic review by the committee. There's no harm, no foul there.
Okay, something I did in my past districts. I just wanted to confirm that you were good to go with that. Okay.
Makes sense. Thank you.
That definitely makes sense. Thank you. Okay, so we will adopt, well, it's not the policy's unchanged. So the reference will be updated in 340. Okay, so then 410, same thing. So this is
This is a Chris
fiscal and
Welton.
management. It's a 5-year policy review, press issue 106. And so this would be Chris Welton, Kathy?
That is correct.
And so did he review and have any questions or notes or comments?
He did review, and based on whether you pulled the information from Board Doc, because there was a change that he is suggesting. So you'll see on the cover sheet, the first sentence of budget planning, each February, the board. So that sentence, it's not something that's typically done. And when I looked back, so I got some history from Ellen today. When I look back at as when that statement was added, it was in 2010. So we're talking 10 years ago. Press, if you look at press does not indicate that as a statement. So it's just something for the policy committee to consider whether you want to keep it in or take his suggestion and remove it.
Hold on one second.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. What's
No,
up?
Okay, I'm trying to find the update from Chris. Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay.
Oh, I should pull it
Usually
up.
do the
So
first-
so the policy would just start with the district fiscal year?
Correct.
Right.
Okay,
If you look at press, that's what press starts with. So again, I tried to get some history, and it was 2010 when that language was added. Not sure why, but again, that's 10 years ago. So you can determine whether, and it's not a practice
Great. Yeah, that makes complete sense to me to review that. I mean, to remove that first sentence under budget planning.
Okay.
Agreed, Margaret?
I agree.
Yep, makes sense.
Okay, and I think that's the only note Chris makes. All right, so then we will update that policy reflecting that statement being removed.
Correct.
That would be our recommendation. Okay. So that is that, let's see. Oh, I see what he did here. I'm just looking through Chris's. Got it. Okay, so the next one on the list is 455, use of credit and procurement cards. Let's see. And I'm sorry, this is,
Chris Welton.
yep, it's press issue 106. So policies unchanged. There was a cross-reference update and Chris's notes. What is he saying, Kath?
So number 3 is indicating what their changes to reflect what we currently do. Each cardholder may charge no more than their available monthly credit limit within a given month without prior authorization from the superintendent or designee. And if you look at press,
well, I'm looking at Chris's notes, right?
correct, on
It's-
number 3.
Well, I'm sorry, his says number 7, right?
Well, there's 2 notes. If you look at board doc,
I am looking at board doc, but I just,
and-
the
yep,
cover sheet. Oh, I see, he's writing it on.
correct. Now they're modifying from what press has indicated.
Well, I think what he is saying is that we should adopt what press is saying, right? Press takes that statement out, doesn't it? On number 7, I'm looking at it.
Yes, number 7, press never had that in there.
Right.
And
So,
again, that was something added in 2010
okay.
when I looked back in history.
And I take by Ellen's note that has never been done before.
Yes, I confirmed that with Ellen. And really, in reality, the board is approving all the financial payments on the monthly board meeting when you review those invoices. All the P-card transactions are part of that. So in reality, you are reviewing it and approving it.
So I don't recall ever hearing a discussion about why that was added, because that's pretty recent.
You mean the all superintendent expenses are reviewed and approved by the board president?
Yeah.
It goes back to 2010.
Oh, 2010.
2010. Mhm.
That's pretty recent. Look at me. Oh my God. Time warp.
That's okay.
So Margaret or Beth, do you see any issue or reason to not to remove that statement?
And I apologize. I'm trying to see Chris's notes on 455. So are we looking at, I see there's a comment on 3 and there's a comment on 7. I have no,
We were initially talking about 7 and we'll have to go back to 3.
okay. Well, the only thing, it sounds like this is redundant because it says where all purchases that are reviewed by someone other than the card holder or someone under the cardholder supervision. So only person that is not under the cardholder supervision as the superintendent is the board. So that statement just repeats. It's implied.
Mhm.
Agreed.
Yeah, I don't know if there's any specific value in calling that out. But to me, that statement is still very true. It's just whether or not we need to call it out specifically.
Mhm.
Is there any reading or any interpretation that suggests that statement, someone that has an interpretation different that says that statement is still not true?
No, my interpretation is that it is true, but that is implied and referenced in the policy.
Yeah. Because anybody to approve the superintendent's expenses would be under his supervision, or it would be the board.
Right.
Yeah. Did Chris have any comment, Kathy, on why that was not a necessary statement?
It's just not a practice. And again, that statement was added. It's different than press.
Yeah, it is
And
not.
that statement goes back when I looked for some history, when that came on, when that was added. It looks like 2010 was the first time it was added.
Because in the body of the policy, right, in the second paragraph, it says it's the board's responsibility through the audit and approval process to determine whether district credit and procurement card used by the superintendent is appropriate.
Mhm.
They're deciding whether or not it's appropriate. So it is repetitive.
Yeah, it seems redundant.
Okay, so then if there's no objection, let's remove that statement and make it consistent with what press recommendations list
Okay.
for number 7. And now let's go back up to number 3.
It looks like in number 3, they're just he's suggesting taking the dollar amount out, maybe in case that would change at some point, that it is whatever the available monthly credit limit is at that time.
Right. And I guess I don't have a good understanding of what that monthly credit is. So that there is a monthly credit limit established somewhere.
Maybe
I
it's,
believe, and I'll just use my own reference from my past district, when I had a P card and based on what I had to order and register my staff for, there were certain times I had a credit limit that was established by the business office. And then at certain times of the year, based on purchases and conferences, that business office business manager would increase my credit limit based on, this, and this, but getting approval from, it was my principal at the time, getting approval. So there was an approval process. So I think that's what it's referring to.
Yeah, I mean,
Everybody has a credit limit on their card.
yeah, and I think the number 5 footnote in press kind of addresses that, right? It gives you the alternate language that just basically says without a dollar number. It's not exactly to what they're indicating here, because the 5 footnote or the 5th footnote says superintendent shall limit the amount of each card may charge in a single purchase or within a given month, right? So it's basically it's taking the specifics out and just giving the superintendent the ability, right? Like, so we don't have to keep updating those numbers is, I think, the mindset.
Right. Yeah, and I hear that. And I guess my only thing is, so this is the language that is not necessarily a monthly credit limit. It is the credit, whatever your P card credit card is, what that credit card. So if you have a credit card that has, and I'm making this up, $1,000 balance, you can spend $1,000. Is
And
my understanding.
That's how I read it with the language that Chris is suggesting. May charge no more than their available monthly credit limit.
But monthly, so it's not monthly. It's, I mean, like there's nothing separate that says, this each month you can spend $200 and you have a balance of 1,000. It's saying it's your complete balance, right?
From my experience, my past experience in another district, and I can clarify this with Chris and Adrian. I did have a monthly credit limit on my P card.
Okay. Yeah. Can we just clear? And I guess, I mean, it's minor, but I just,
Let me ask, like Luke, just, do you have a monthly limit
Yeah, P cards usually come with a $5,000 limit.
every month?
is that,
Yes.
Oh, so it is a monthly limit that's set.
I mean, they could be a little higher for teaching and learning and sometimes technology, just due to the nature of those departments and professional development and curricular needs. But I don't know the specifics if those individuals in those departments have a higher limit. But from previous districts, though, they usually run anywhere between $5,000 and $10,000. And then usually there's a policy that states a limit that you can charge up to that needs to be approved regardless.
So I guess the issue is not the monthly, monetary amount. But it is monthly.
Yes.
Our monthly limits, right? And so I guess that's what Margaret is trying to understand. Am I understanding you right, Margaret?
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, yes. So, yeah.
So if there are monthly limits on the cards, then saying may charge no more than their available monthly credit limit would be accurate.
Correct.
And it sounds like the amount has changed, which is probably why Chris is suggesting we leave it more general in wording so that as that amount might change for different departments, we don't have to change that in the policy, like Courtney, you were saying.
Yeah.
Correct.
It makes sense to me. How are you feeling, Margaret? Do you need more clarification on it?
Yeah. Hmm.
Something's not sitting right with you.
It is. I apologize. So it's not. It's just so when I read it, it appears as if I'm looking for the approval process, and maybe that's in there without. Yeah. So I'm just making this up. In theory, an individual could spend. If they have $5,000, they could spend $60,000 a year without any review. Is that a correct statement?
But could they, I don't think they can do that all in 1 month without prior authorization.
Right. But they could spend $5,000 a month every month.
If that's what their limit is, right? And like Luke said, I think it's different for each department.
But right, and those still go through an approval process, so that can be denied.
That's what I'm looking for. So they still go through an approval process. Okay. And I guess that's where, okay. Is that approval process somewhere else?
Margaret, that's a good question.
Different in the last.
Go ahead, Beth. But I think in that checklist, there's a couple of them that control that. Go ahead, Beth.
Well, in the paragraph right before the numbered items, it does refer to the approval process.
Okay.
It's the board's responsibility through the audit and approval process to determine. There's that piece of it.
But then there's even number 4
Or
that says the superintendent must approve the use of the district credit or procurement card.
when it's by telephone, fax, and internet. But I'm just wondering, like Luke, I think what you were saying is there's probably an amount that if you're going to spend $1,000, that has to be approved. You know,
Right, there's usually designated limits that you can utilize.
Would you like me to find out? Would you like me to find out what the approval process is?
I apologize, but that would just be.
No, that's fine. That's why we do this, to clarify.
Let me just take a heartbeat and look in
Okay.
I
Press,
think maybe there's another, let's look at the press one and then also, I'm just looking. Maybe there's another board policy that addresses it.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, like say, so 460 for us is the, purchases and contracts. So purchases, the superintendent shall manage the district's purchases.
and that is helpful. So maybe that's the reference. The district will manage the district's purchases. Maybe that's the reference, and that's somewhere where it's in.
Beth, are you referring, or Courtney, are you referring to 460?
Yeah, 460. And so that does give a list, when presenting a contract or a purchase, the superintendent specifications. And, in excess of 25,000 must comply with the, so there's a lot of breakdown there, Margaret.
So when you look at the cross-reference of the policy we're currently reviewing, 445,
Yes,
cross-reference indicates what you just talked about, Courtney, 460.
perfect.
Yeah.
Indicates about the expenses, 560. So that may be
Yeah.
the answer to what you're looking for, Margaret.
That is it. That is
Okay.
it. Thank you
Okay.
very much.
Yeah.
Okay, so then are we now comfortable changing number 3 to reflect how Chris Welton suggested?
I am.
Yes. So then we will proceed with those 2 changes to number 3 and number 7.
Okay.
That's how we will recommend the adoption of it. Okay, so that's 460. I lost my little chart, moved around. Okay, so the next one we're looking at is 480, which we're there. Yeah, the accounting and audits. There's policy and cross-reference updates, and it's in 106. And I think that moving on to Chris's, he has no suggestions he has no comments regarding the suggested press recommendations or updates, sorry. And so to me, it looks like this one, an updating of the cross-reference. And just, it looks like a kind of a wording exchange. Anything else, Kathy, that I missed?
No, you got it.
So Margaret or Beth, any items to discuss on this?
I have none.
Nope, that looks good to me.
And we'll adopt the recommendations from press for 480. Okay, moving on to 490. Student activity and fiduciary funds. It's a policy and legal reference update in press 106. See what Chris says.
VP was okay with that one.
It's good. Cycling down. Yep. So no changes per Chris. Anything to discuss? It looks like just language updates and a legal reference addition. Margaret or Beth?
I've got nothing.
Nope, nothing here.
All right. So we will adopt the changes on 490. Moving on to 5100. Staff Development Program. This is, there's a policy, no policy changes. These are legal and cross-reference updates, and it's from press 105.
Sorry, what's our next one that we skipped to?
490.
Oh, 490. Okay. Okay. I thought you said, I read 5100.
Oh,
Okay.
sorry. You know what? 5100 is the next one, but
I don't know. Oh, here it is. It's down a little bit.
it's down. So who reviewed that one, Kathy?
This is a staff development program. I don't know, Luke, were you able? I think these would fall under you personnel. So, but I'm looking at it, and because the legal reference is referring to Title 9, Title IX is a policy, was a new policy that we pulled for a future policy meeting.
So should this one be pulled to go in a conjunction with those other ones?
It should, because you don't really want to pass a policy where a policy hasn't been
Yeah.
adopted yet. Do you agree, Luke?
Yeah, that one. Yeah, I'm just, because I see the Title IX reference in 5100. So we have to pull that one.
Okay.
Perfect.
I'm sorry, Luke, did you say 5100 as well? Because we were talking 490.
Oh, I'm sorry. You were on
No,
490.
490, I thought we were
We're
good.
finished. Yeah, I thought we were finished with that.
Okay, sorry, my bad.
Sorry,
So
I was jumping ahead. I apologize.
All right, so 5100 does have that reference to Title IX, which we're pulling just to review for the next committee meeting. So
Yes.
we pull 5100 as well to go along with that.
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, so then we will go to 5220. Why am I not? 5220, which is the substitute teachers. It's in Press 105, minor policy change and legal reference update.
Yeah. So that one, there's just a year being changed from 2020 to 2021. And then as stated, a legal reference correction.
This is a question I had on this one, and I don't know, and maybe that's it, where it talks about the short-term substitute teacher or any of this. Does this, some of the challenges that we are facing currently with obtaining substitute teachers, and I'm thinking specifically when we're talking about short-term substitute teachers, has there been any discussion on maybe expanding that due to COVID or emergency proclamation, or that is still, that's not been addressed yet?
No, actually, that short-term substitute is fairly new, I think, due to the
Oh, really?
inability for districts to obtain substitutes. But the bigger issue is that we're just not, no districts really are receiving applicants. People just do not want to work in this pandemic. We are seeing that across the board, that people are just very hesitant to work during the pandemic.
And that, you know, and I hear that, and I'm trying to balance that for from community members who have talked about, you know, how they have been trying and short or bureaucratic processes have limited their ability. So I'm trying to balance all of that.
Margaret, that's a really good point. And maybe I'm not thinking, Luke, was there something where the state, you know, made the application process a little more lax or something recently? Did I remember you saying that or reading?
Well, no, it was the language for short-term substitute. There never used to be a short-term substitute certificate. And so that's a new provision. Usually you needed to have a college, some type of bachelor's degree.
Mm-hmm.
But now they are allowing individuals who have 60 college hours, 60 credit hours to apply for the licensure.
Okay.
So
Okay.
that's how they changed that practice.
Okay, so that is new. So they have taken it. That is an
Right.
account for. Okay.
Maybe that's
Okay.
where I read it. Yep. Okay.
Okay. Perfect.
But
Thank
Luke,
you.
isn't it correct that someone who's looking to do a short-term substitute, get a short-term substitute license, that they have to go through ISB?
They still have to go through ISB. Yep, they have to submit their application form, pay their fee, and then still be approved by ISB before they're granted the short-term license.
Right. Okay. Okay.
And it is frustrating because Margaret, we all hear it from the community as well. And when you ask them, well, did you go through the process that you're required to go through? You know, a lot of them quit when they see how bureaucratic and time consuming it is. And it seems like, and I have not attempted to go through it myself, but it seems like the process is not an easy one. And so, you know, I always kind of say, well, don't be mad at 205 because we didn't establish this process, but it does seem like not an easy process to go through, which you would think they would have looked at and tried to address earlier in our pandemic to help us out. But I agree with you, Margaret. It's a very frustrating situation. Okay, so the 220, the only date, it's just that change of that 1 year.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
So anything else on that one, Margaret or Beth?
I do not, sorry.
That's
Yeah,
okay.
for me.
Okay, so then the next one is 5270, employment at will, compensation and assignment. This is a press issue from 106. And it looks like there is just a cross-reference update, no policy change.
Correct.
So is that just the cross-reference titles are updated? Is that the only thing I see, Kathy?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, I have nothing there.
I have nothing.
Okay, so we will adopt those recommended changes. Moving on to 5330, sick days, vacation days, holidays, leave. Unchanged, there's a legal reference update. And I guess there's some language change, right? It looks like legal school.
No language change
No
for
language
our
change, okay.
policy.
Yeah, I don't see any language change on that.
So ours does look pretty different than press, correct?
Mhm.
Oh, I see what they did. They just referenced the
The contracts.
contracts. Yep.
Yeah, for the details of it, referencing the different contracts. That's what that's how I read it as well.
Yep.
And then,
So Luke, any of the teachers or staff members that opted to take leave through the CARES Act during this time, is that covered within that kind of paragraph, the side letter through their contract? Is that where it's covered under to address?
Yes.
Right. But now, if help me on it, this is only the support personnel, right? Because teachers aren't referenced anywhere in here, right?
Yeah, this is education support personnel.
Okay. That was just clarity for me.
Yes.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right. I've got nothing here. Anyone else?
I've got nothing. Thank you.
nope.
Okay, so we'll adopt the legal reference update on 5330. Moving on to 620, the school year calendar and day. Again, this is a legal and cross-reference update. There's no change in the policy from press issue 106. And I have nothing on this one.
Actually, now that I look at the cross-reference, it references 1804180, which is the pandemic preparedness, which we were putting on for future board meeting. Because
Oh.
we did further review of that.
Yep, we pushed 4180 to the next review meeting.
Yep.
Okay.
All right, so then let's pull this one and add it on to the next one once we review 4180.
Okay.
Good catch, Kathy. Pull next one. Okay, so then going on to 6 through 10, credit for alternative courses and programs and course substitutions. Sorry, my dog is in the background. I hear him like it's like nails on a chalkboard, but I don't know.
Doesn't bother me at all.
You're used to it. Policy unchanged, and this is a legal reference update. It's a press that 106.
I didn't have anything.
I do not as well. I see no notes of mine. Yeah, the legal references are updated. Okay. So we will adopt those updates to the legals for 6/3/10. Moving on to 6/3/20. This is high school credit for proficiency. Again, these are legal reference updates from Press 106. Just trying to scroll down here.
Courtney, before you go on to that, on the last one, there was nothing from Scott on that one? I thought there was a note.
I'm looking at that and I don't see anything.
Okay. Maybe they were just checking to make sure he didn't have anything. Okay, there was just a note on our sheet.
Kathy, do you have anything from Scott?
I do not.
Okay. All right. And then on 3/20, I also do not see any notes from Scott. Okay, so anybody here?
I've got nothing.
Beth?
Nope, not here.
Okay, so we will update those legal references on 3/20. Moving on to 6/3/40, student testing and assessment program. So this is a policy change, or at least wording. I think it looks like it generalizes it mostly. It takes out the IAR specific reference to that test and just kind of gives it an umbrella of all standardized assessments. I don't see any notes from Scott as well. I have nothing on this one. Margaret or Beth?
I've got nothing.
Beth, you good?
I'm good, yes, thank you.
Okay. So we will adopt the recommendations of press for 6/3/40. 7/40, non-public school students, including parochial and homeschooled students. This is from press 104. It looks like. Sorry. Oh, I'm in the wrong section, sorry.
No, I had to catch up too.
All
All right.
right, 7/40.
I've got nothing on this one.
And Luke, Kevin was good with this one. Is that correct?
Yes, he was good with 7/40.
It looks like the only change is adding in that term intra-district transfer. That's all I really see. So I have nothing either.
Good with that.
Okay, so we'll adopt that change for 7/40. Moving on to 7/100. Health, eye, and dental examinations, immunizations, and exclusion of students. Press 106 update. So did Kevin look at this one as well, Luke?
Is this 7/100?
100.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Looks like it is mostly,
You said the changes look good and appropriate on there.
it just spells out registered nurse, physician assistant, who's doing the examination.
Right.
Just wording, maybe.
We should have held off on this until they change it to proof of COVID-19 vaccination.
That's coming. Yeah.
We'll see this one in the next press update as well. All right, I have nothing for this one.
It's good to me.
Okay, so we will adopt the press recommended updates to 7/100. Next one is 7140, search and seizure. There's a legal reference update, no policy change, and it's press 106. Anything from Kevin on this one?
That one looks good.
And I had nothing as well.
I've got nothing.
No, me neither.
Okay, we will update that legal reference. Next one is 7190, student behavior. There are updates in policy, legal, and cross-reference, and it's from press 104. Any input from Kevin on this one?
Yep. Only no big changes except on page, I believe it's 5 of 7 at the lower right-hand corner for the isolated timeout, and physical restraint.
Oh.
We as a cabinet would not recommend to the board that we prohibit the use of isolated timeout or physical restraints.
Say that sentence again. There was a couple of negatives in there, and it always takes me a second to catch up.
Sure, we would, our recommendation would be that we not adopt a language that we do not utilize isolated timeout, or physical restraint.
So
So to say it differently, we'd like to keep that statement that press is referring to. We'd like to put it in our policy.
Right.
Or,
Right, that's why I'm, so you
Yeah,
want it in
yeah.
there.
all right, that's what I'm confused. So are we we're keeping it in or taking it out,
It's new to press.
right?
And I believe what Luke is saying is that we'd like to keep it in. We'd like to have it added to the policy.
Okay,
We have the option if need be with students. You want to add to that, Luke?
No, Kathy, actually, I think we are looking to strike that.
okay,
Because we as a district, we do want the ability to utilize isolated timeout, and physical restraint. We actually train our staff members to support students at various need levels.
Oh,
So we don't want to take that clause out because if need be, to keep a student or staff member safe, we will have to utilize this.
I see.
I think the confusion here is that statement is currently not in our policy, Luke. On that page
okay.
5, that
Okay.
red area is the press recommendation. So I think that's where we're all getting confused.
Okay.
So what I think you're saying is please don't adopt the press recommendation.
Correct. 100%.
okay, okay.
So was there a different language that came down on this topic from the state? Because I thought that there was a something that came down recently from an issue that you could not utilize these things anymore. Is it just about the language or the training, Luke, that makes it different?
Yeah, it's the training piece. I mean, we provide CPI training to staff annually who are working with higher needs students. And so we can utilize that, but based on appropriate training, and any means of hands-on method is always the last case scenario. That is not nothing that we default to.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that.
So the recommendation, we would not include that.
Not include the press, right?
Okay, okay.
So
Sorry, that one was a little confusing.
Okay.
So to your point, is there anything in our policy that, explains how our staff undergoes that training? Because I don't think there's even a kind of reference to it. That option, the restraint and.
Right, yeah, I'm not sure. It's a good question. I'm not sure if it actually references CPI training.
Or maybe it could be worded that those things would only be used when absolutely necessary by staff trained in CPI, something along those lines. Would we want that to be a part of the policy, or maybe it's in a different policy? that has to do with staff training or,
So Luke, when you talk about the fact that those pertinent staff members go through that training annually and they know on the continuum of force, that's kind of my language, that it's the last option.
Yes.
Where is that? Like, is that in some, staff training manual, or where is that identified for staff and for us?
Well, that is part of the CPI training that's provided to staff. That is because it's, nonviolent crisis intervention, is what CPI is.
Yep.
And really what it refers to is that, that is only in an extreme situation. It's always to get away and avoid contact with the student and making sure that the student isn't a harm to themselves or others.
Right.
So that's all part of the CPI training that staff receives. But to your question though, is I'm not sure if that is specifically spelled out in one of our board policies.
Can we hold that then? Because that is something we either, let's figure out if it's someplace, if it's referenced someplace else, perfect. If not, maybe can we figure out a place where it can be adequately addressed?
If you look at page 11 of the press document, the footnote, to me, it's a little confusing, so I don't know if anyone else will be able to, but it talks about,
We got to catch up with you, Kathy. I'm nowhere
okay.
close.
next time around will be better, Margaret.
That's okay. I mean, that's all right. That's all right.
Which footnote are you, at number 40?
47. Mm-hmm.
I think it partially, I think it addresses it right above the press recommendation. And that last line where it refers to corporal punishment, it does not include reasonable force is needed to maintain safety for students, staff, or other persons, or for the purpose of self-defense or defense of property.
There you go.
So I think that's a looser interpretation of it.
Yeah.
Because I don't think we'd want to specifically note CPI because trainings can obviously change throughout the years, and we wouldn't want to reference one particular type of training.
Right.
So I do think, Kathy, pointing at that reference, that number 47, like that addresses some of the concerns, right? Like it really does say it may be used only if the use is authorized by policy administrative procedure.
yeah.
Maybe this is one that we want to run by Kevin again. And if we need to pull in legal. What do you think, Luke?
Yeah, I mean, if there's questions about it, we can definitely pull it.
Well,
Okay.
it's more of, it is covered in 47. Is there any way we can incorporate any of that language in 47 and put it in there? Yeah, maybe that's what you're talking about, Kathy, by running it by legal.
Yeah, that's what I would like to see happen, because if it's a practice that's being used and authorized, I'd like to see it in the policy so that staff are covered by it. Right? If they are trained to use it and use it appropriately, I want there to be something in the policy for them to be able to reference if they have to. And I think that footnote of 47 really would, adding that kind of the body of that into the actual policy would cover them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so are we going to pull it and I'll get more information and put it on the next meeting?
Yeah, I think that's the best thing to do, because
Okay.
I think it would be nice to have it spelled out and clear, just because it has been a topic that's been, a concern,
Okay.
And while we're doing that, I had a question on going back to our policy, page 2, And I might be a little outdated here, but the bottom of the page of page 2, number 5, where they're talking about phones have to be powered off and out of sight during the regular school day. I don't, I don't know if that's still the practice. And so if someone might update me on that.
Does it say it? And I just reading the beginning. Does it say it has to be turned off? Oh yeah, it must be.
Powered off and out of sight. And I am not sure that we are.
I think it's often used as part of the activity being done in the class sometimes. So I think maybe it's just changed
Yeah.
since the policy, I'm sure.
And I think that the catch one there is the supervising teacher grants permission, right?
Right. But
Because-
even,
yeah, I mean, I see what you're saying, Margaret, because that's not what's happening. All these kids have their phones on all the time.
right. So let's not tell people that
Right.
that's the case. Yeah.
I mean, I feel like we should almost like stop after the first, like that second sentence, right? It shouldn't
Yes,
be
that disrupted.
disrupts the educational environment, right? Like that's true, but yeah, to say that.
Yeah.
all present.
Right.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, so maybe Kathy, can we have Kevin just look at, kind of when he looks at that 47 footnote to adopt it for the protection of our staff, maybe we can look at number 5 and make it more reflective of the current what's actually going on in our, at least, at the high school, to reflect that, to, basically, be accurate and updated.
Okay, will do.
Were there any other notes on that one, Margaret, that you wanted him to look at since we're pulling it?
No. Thank you.
Nope, I'm good with that. Thank you.
All right, so 7-190 we'll pull for the next one. 7-300 extracurricular activities policy and cross-reference updates.
Have nothing.
One that,
Yeah, so I actually, oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Beth. Did you talking?
that's okay. Was this one that there was another policy?
Yeah, so this is the one that, I had a couple questions, and I actually talked to Rob Wagner, the athletic director, about it, because, the number 4 of our policy. So the number 4 of the press policy says, they have to provide insurance coverage, which is not, according to AD Wagner and Dr. Bagdasarian, not accurate. So that's why it's not in ours. But ours, in place of it, has this whatchamacallit. Wait, no, wait, I'm looking at the wrong one. Stand by 1 second. Hold on.
The eligibility from IHSA and some of those other associations.
Comply with the eligibility
Or is
rules.
that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
There's a variety of forms that they have to fill out, including the concussions and head injuries and IHSA, and that's
Right.
all part of the registration process.
And that's accurate, correct, Beth?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, specifically, if they want to review that and make sure it's still exactly what they're asking for, but I know that there's a number of forms, and those look like the ones
Yeah, I think they were concerned, because I sent them both of these. They were concerned with in the press recommendations, which I'm so confused by them, because like the number 6 on the press, that they must consent to random drug testing. Like we don't have that policy, like, and IHSA doesn't have it anymore. So I think that's what they were kind of concerned about. Okay, so ours looks good then,
Yeah.
because we don't have drug testing waivers and we don't have insurance verification.
And I think possibly the insurance might be a part of one of these other.
Yeah. Okay.
Or we talked it through.
No, I think we're good.
Okay.
So I'm sorry, in 7300 though, there was a note from Kevin, and I'm not sure if you guys saw that note, that we will not recommend the board to adopt the statement that reads, the student and his or her parent or guardian must provide written consent to random drug and alcohol testing pursuant to the extracurricular drug and alcohol testing program.
Yeah, that's what we were just talking about. We
Okay.
don't do that. IHA doesn't do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I
Yeah.
just want to make sure that, yeah, we don't.
Yes.
Okay.
So basic, and that is not, just to be clear, that is not what they're suggesting be adopted as the policy change at this time, right? That's press policy. We have not adopted it in the past, and we're not
Right.
going to add it in now. The policy
Correct.
change that we are adopting when we agree to this is adding in the word registered nurse in number 3.
Yes.
Yeah. And then the cross-reference, the update of 720 policy.
Yeah.
So those are the only 2 changes to our current 7,300.
All right.
All right, next, 7,325. This is a cross-reference update for student fundraising activities. It's press 106. Oh, and I think it's just updating the 490 policy title.
I have nothing for this one.
Yeah.
Or is this 7325?
Yes.
Yes.
So, so there's a point. So Kevin recommended that the board should consider adopting on the last page of that, 2 of 2, 8A, B, and C. About any fundraising efforts it starts.
I am missing this.
On the press
about the
update, so the press update, there is a number 8.
Yes,
It's-
8,
I'm sorry,
A, B, and C.
Right, it's not an update, the press policy.
Right, it's not included in D205, but Dr. Rubenstein said that the board should consider adding it.
And Luke, he's indicating that to consider adding it, and especially in light of our current construction projects and potential
Correct.
fundraiser by students and others.
Yep.
So can somebody give me an example of what this would be? Like, what is this incorporating? Like what tiles or bricks, posters or placards must, I mean, is,
So-
About any wording that is used.
Offensive or?
Yeah, I mean, what it sounds like, yeah, that it's viewpoint neutral guidelines for the creation of messages. So, right, so nothing is offensive or inappropriate. And just letting donors know that all messages, I mean, it's how it's stated, you know, that they're going to be reviewed for approval. So a message could be, in essence, denied if it was deemed to be found offensive.
That is, I would assume that would be someplace else too, but
yeah, and that's what I'm looking at.
that, if it's not, that would be incredibly important. Is it under 880 by chance?
Yep, that's exactly where it is.
Oh,
Yep.
okay,
I just pulled it up, Margaret. So
thank you.
880, let's see. The school board accepts gifts from any foundation or other entity or individual, provided the gift can be used in a manner compatible with the board's educational objectives and policies, and permits the district to work towards resource equity among its learning centers. We accept only unrestricted gifts, except for the donation is expressly conditioned to fund specific projects. The superintendent or designee may accept gifts under 500 on behalf of the district without board approval, and the superintendent shall develop procedures for review and recommendation of donations that involve incorporating messages into or placing messages upon school property. All gifts received become the school district's property.
Yeah, but maybe it's not as clear if that's all it says, because it says it will work to incorporate messages.
And that I don't think is specifically talking about fundraising. It's more talking about donations.
Donations, right?
Mhm.
Who is going to develop the viewpoint neutral guidelines? Like, you know, I feel I'm trying to understand what this would trigger. I mean, I have to imagine that there's somebody that's already reviewing fundraising efforts.
Well, the fundraising efforts have to be laid out at the beginning of the year, at least for the PTAs, and reviewed before the fundraisers are done. I know that.
Right, and the superintendent reviews and approves
And
those
board-
fundraising efforts every year.
And
Right.
board president and superintendent, and then I'm just not sure when like a fundraiser is done through athletic boosters or those different groups. I'm not sure of the process of their approval for fundraisers, but I have to guess that there is a process in place for approval for those as well.
Right.
Maybe they fall under the exact same guidelines as the PTAs do.
Right. And I think, yeah, and I agree. And I'm just trying to think through. I know there is a process for selecting what, you know, can be received. But I wonder if they're trying to highlight here the difference, you know, if they're putting placards up or bricks or anything like that, that
Right.
they,
Yeah, that would be my question. Is like if we're doing as a fundraiser through a PTA, where you can purchase a tile or a brick that's going to be placed somewhere on, you know, on school property. That's great that the PTAs are doing that, but who is reviewing the message? I mean, I don't think that it should only default to somebody in PTA. I would imagine somebody from the district should be reviewing messages as well.
right, right. And I'm thinking through York currently, and help me on this, York currently gets, they can have blocks or, you know, brick pavers added, donated. So they must have a process to say what's being placed on that brick paver.
Right, that's what that's why I'm confused. I would imagine there has to be something in place already.
Well, the brick paver at that point would be a donation, right? So wouldn't that fall under the donation?
Well, yeah, but you had to pay for. I mean, I guess that's a wording thing. You're right. Everything is a donation.
Right, and we're specifically talking about fundraising activities,
Okay.
not donations. So that's why I guess I'm confused. It would not be the people donating, it would be the people raising the money that we're talking about.
Any fundraising. Okay. So I don't know. I mean, I see the need for it. Okay. I do see the need for it. I just, I'm not disputing the need at all. I just,
I can get clarification and see what legal might say about that, if it boxes us in or if they have other language.
and I guess I am going to be surprised if this doesn't exist somewhere. And I might be surprised. I'm surprised often. But you know, it just seems like it should exist somewhere. But it may not.
But I'm just reading this footnote. Number 5, the issue. School officials can avoid issues by reviewing donor messages according to uniform rules that do not discriminate based on the basis of viewpoint. Right, and so that's what I think you're right. I mean, this footnote, I think you're right, Margaret. This footnote says requiring that donor messages go through a thorough review process prior to their permanent placement on any medium would avoid all these issues.
Mhm.
So when somebody buys a brick at York, right, who is reviewing what's on that brick before it's placed on school property?
Right.
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 So, I mean, I guess the question before we decide whether or not to change our policy is to find out if there's already one that's in place.
Yeah.
So if Kathy, if we can figure out if there's already a review policy in place, and I think the York bricks are a perfect example of it. Any message that's, on school property has to go through somebody has to say it's neutral viewpoint.
So are we talking about procedure for review of this kind of brick or tile? Or are we talking, is there another place in our policy that helps address this? Because
And what is the
I'm hearing
process?
two things.
Well, I think the first question is there one? Right.
Okay, is there a policy that addresses it? Okay.
And sometimes I feel like some of these things are practices, but
Yep.
never reflected in policy. So if there is a practice that is not covered in a policy, this looks like it would be the right place to add it in, and 8A, B, C might be the right way to add it in. So let's see if there is a practice in place that is already being utilized, a procedure, and then let's go from there, I think. Does that make sense to everyone?
Yeah, makes
Yes.
sense to me.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So we will pull this one as well for 325 and add it to our next.
Yep. If we're going to add it, I just think it would be nice to add the process where it happens. Because putting it in there without knowing what that process is.
Yeah, agreed. When is it triggered, right?
Right.
Yeah, who's
Yeah.
doing it and such. So I think it would be good to have that wording in there as well.
Yeah, agree. All right, and then the last one I have is 7340, student records. There's policy, legal, and cross-reference updates from the Press 104. Does Kevin have anything on this one?
7-40. Yes, he said the changes overall look good and appropriate. We have Kathy, is Kevin referring to you on this?
When you look at the press, page 4 of this policy, student biometric information collection, I indicated that we do not have it in our policy. So that's what Kevin's referring to. And it is optional. Number 14 is optional when you look at the footnotes.
I'm just gonna throw myself under the bus. Can somebody explain to me what the thank you, Margaret, biometric information collection process is?
So
That's
biometric,
fingerprints.
I take one for I'll take that one for the team.
it could either be like the thumb or finger scanner, or it could be the ocular, an eye scanner, anything, that we can collect information from.
Right. Do we use anything that requires a fingerprint scan currently
For our students.
for our students?
For students, no. I mean, and the only process that we have in the district right now that I'm aware of is just our fingerprinting, our live scanning of new applicants. When people are being offered a job, they have to go
Okay.
through the fingerprinting process.
Okay, yeah,
Right. So this section is about students but collection. So I don't think it really is.
Yeah, I
think
don't think we have anything that students are touching or scanning. They're not using their finger. They're not using ocular scanner for anything that I'm aware of.
okay.
That's very Jason Bournish.
It's probably gonna happen next year.
Well, no, but I will say though, there's a lot of people that I know, Todd Schmidt, with all the new construction and new buildings and security systems and camera updates and stuff. I can see fingerprint scanning, for student access into buildings and stuff becoming something that sooner rather than later. So, I mean, it's interesting that there's clearly schools in Illinois that are doing this already because it's in here.
Yeah.
So, but I think for us, it's not appropriate at this time.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
So we will adopt the recommended changes from the press update that are just within the paragraph, not adding in that suggested or that paragraph about the biometrics.
Yes.
Okay, so we will recommend those changes. Okay, I think that's our last one. Does
So if
any,
I could just ask a procedural question. So all of these policies that we reviewed that are okay, are we looking to have them be a first read for the December 15th meeting? Okay,
yep, that's correct, Margaret, right? December 15th, there'll be the first reading of them, and then the first meeting in January would be the second reading.
Right,
gotcha.
right,
Okay,
right. The only thing is, I don't know. I know there's only one meeting in December, so I don't know how crammed that one is. So maybe that's something can work on the agenda.
Yeah, and it really, do we read each policy at the board reading, Margaret?
No, we don't, but we obviously we have time for discussion on it.
Okay.
So
So maybe I do think that agenda is pretty crowded for December. So is it okay, Margaret, since we do have 2 meetings in January, correct?
I don't think there's any time limit on when it has to be presented. And maybe Kathy, help me if I am missing something, but I didn't think there was a specific, it had to be presented at the next meeting or within a certain time limit.
no, I think it is, if it's a policy that, really impacts what we do, then we probably want to move quicker. But there, from my understanding and experience, there isn't a specific time frame.
Okay.
I don't have let's see.
Yeah, I think we're okay. I mean, we're already in December, right? So it's not like we're pushing it off, for 3 months, but I think that we can, with the 2 meetings in January, we can still accomplish getting the second reading on in January as well. So I feel like let's put them on for the January agenda.
Okay,
First reading, and then the second reading would be in the second meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great point, Margaret. I think it's going to be a crowded December. So, and I like to give it due course of time if anybody wants to discuss it. So,
absolutely.
all right. I think that's anything else for discussion.
I have nothing.
All right. Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it. And meeting is adjourned.
7:29, okay.